Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. Right after we got married, I had a house over in Coldwater and we worked really hard and finished it up and got it all ready to sell, and we sold it. We bought a house over in Quincy. There's a great many stories because we lived there for 10 years, but this is just one of them. There was an old dead maple tree out in front of the house. It still had a few leaves on it, but it only had one or two branches on it. The trunk was this big around. I mean, it was huge. And I decided I was going to cut that tree down because it was an ugly tree set right in the middle of the front yard. Well, right along the road, within about 5 feet of the road, actually. And I wanted it down so it looked better. So I went over and borrowed my dad's chainsaw and tried cutting it down. Well, the chainsaw had a 14-inch bar, which was going to be pretty close to being able to cut the tree down. But I figured if I notched it and, worked it right, I could probably get the tree to topple. Well, the chain on the chainsaw was pretty dull. And I had some experience sharpening chainsaw chains at that time, but I wasn't really good at it. So I gnawed at the thing, and it just wasn't cutting. Later on, I learned about the little depth gauges on chainsaws. When you file those down, the teeth grab a hold of the wood a little better. If you don't file those down, they rub on the wood and stop the teeth from biting. Well, that was an experience that I got later. Anyways, Frank Goshkoff, my neighbor, came over with his chainsaw, and he had a little Poland, just a little green one with a 16-inch bar. And that thing cut like the dickens. We went through that tree in probably 20 minutes, dropped it, had it in the yard, and cut it up in another hour, had it stacked out back and ready to go into the fireplace. That's when I decided that I needed a new chainsaw. Took Dad's back, and that's kind of the end of the dropping the tree story. But the tree actually was two situations. There was a big hill that the tree sat on. And it wasn't so much a large hill as it was tall. What had happened over the years, the tree sat next to a pasture, hayfield. And the hayfield was lower than the road. And for some reason, the tree ended up on this little pile of dirt. And as the dirt washed away around the tree, the roots got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until I had a ball of roots on the bottom of that tree that went a good 6 feet around. Now 6 feet thick. I thought I could just dig away the hill. It wasn't a hill, it was a ball of roots. So I wanted to get rid of this stump, and I didn't have a lot of money. So I was trying to figure out some way I could get rid of it. And I said, okay, I'm going to dig it out. So I went out there with a shovel and a pickaxe, and I dug and I dug and I dug. And I got a ways down, but it just kept spreading further. So I was taking an axe and trying to cut the roots and digging a little bit and trying to cut the roots and not having much success. Well, half a summer was gone. And I knew that I needed to get rid of this stump. Well, I didn't really need to get rid of it. I just was determined. So I thought, well, okay, I'll set fires. So all that wood that I got from splitting up the tree, yep, it went to burning out that stump. Except the stump didn't burn. It was sitting in a pile of dirt wrapped around the roots. Great insulator. Kind of like refractory. So I could burn some roots, and then after the fire was out, I could pry out that charred root, and I didn't think I was ever going to get done. And I was working on it every night after work. Lydia, being the salesperson that she is, saw that there was a crew working on the road out in front of the house. So while I was at work, she went over and talked to one of the guys running the backhoe and asked him if he could dig out the stump. He said, "I'll come back after work and I'll take care of that stump for you." I forget how much he charged. It wasn't much, but this was 1979, 1980, and a little bit of money went a lot further. Anyways, he came over that night, and he had a big backhoe, a very large tractor-mounted backhoe, So he was able to dig and get down and break the roots and get the stump loose. But the backhoe wasn't strong enough to tip the stump up out of the hole. And he tried and tried and tried and couldn't do it. So I said, "That's okay. We'll get it out of the hole now that you got it dug loose." I thought, yeah, okay, I can hook onto this with a truck, pull it over to the side. Yeah, okay. That sounds good. And thinking like that gets you into trouble 9 times out of 10. Well, Dan, my neighbor, saw that I was over there struggling with my truck. He brought over his little Chevy Love, and I had my Ford half-ton and his Chevy Love hooked up to it with 2 chains, and we were pulling on it, and it would tip, but it wouldn't come out of the hole because it went down into the ground a good 4 foot. It was a miserable thing. Dan said, "Well, we should get some dynamite and blow it out." I said, "Well, I got some magic powder," because Lydia had bought me a little magic powder. Can't say the word, otherwise I'll get bounced. But she brought me a magic powder. So I ended up with a 1-pound can of boom boom stuff. And I said, jokingly, "I have a can." And he said, "Oh, well, let's try that." And I said, looking at my house and the 11 houses in the subdivision behind him, I said, "Turn around and look at those houses. What do you see?" Every one of them's got a picture window. We set off a 1-pound can of boom boom powder, and we're going to take out every window in the whole area. So we didn't try the magic powder. Well, I borrowed a couple of come-alongs from work, and I took the old Ford half-ton. It was the 1969 Ford half-ton pickup truck, the old square nose buggers. I backed the truck up to the stump, hooked on the come-alongs to the front pocket, stake pockets on the box, and wrapped a chain around the top of the stump and ratcheted it forward. Managed to tip it up onto the bed of the truck. Now the truck was down on the rubber blocks. Springs were fully compressed. But I ratcheted, managed to get it up to the point where it was tipping out of the hole. So I put the truck in first gear, gunned it, and headed off across the yard. I plowed a deep trench across the yard before I got to the ridge road, pulled up onto Ridge Road, and just kept going. The Quincy dump was just down the road, about a mile and a half. I drug that stump all the way down the road to the dump and backed up to the edge of the drop, unhooked the chains, and pulled away. Now, I was young, and I did something a little silly. I looked back and I saw that stump sitting on the edge of that drop-off, and I thought, nah, I'm not leaving until you're gone. So I put the truck in reverse, slammed into that stump, and knocked it over the edge of the drop-off down into the swamp below. Yeah, they used to make dumps out of swamps and things. They would take all the trash, everything that you wanted to throw away, mostly agricultural things and yard waste. It wasn't washing machines and trucks and things like that. It was rocks and dirt and grass and leaves and all those kind of things. That was before the EPA really got banging along and said, wetlands. Can't touch wetlands. So, be that as it may, the old truck managed to knock it over the bank, and I drove home happy as a clam. Now all I needed to do was haul home truckload after truckload of dirt to fill in that big hole I'd dug. That's the story of the Quincy Stump. How it fought and finally lost. If you have any suggestions for a new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.
This video is not to be viewed by anyone under the age of 13 in the U.S. or 16 in the European Union, without the express written permission of the parents or legal guardians of the underage person. Such written permission must be on file at the local government entity in charge of enforcing the rules and regulations established by the FTC. Anyone violating these terms is admitting by default that they hold harmless the owners and operators of this channel. Any and all questions should be addressed to your local branch of the FTC.